special guest today is Heather Wohl. So we're doing something a little bit different today because she is a fantasy writer, but she is also the co-founder of Rusty Ogre Publishing with her sister, Erica Summers. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. So tell me a little bit about yourself, Heather.
Well, I'm actually a laboratory director here in Wyoming, so I'm actually kind of more science oriented. I'm more of the brains, and Erica's very much the heart. If everybody's kind of seen, there's an artist called the Awkward Yeti who's amazing, and he always does these great illustrations of the heart and the brain kind of pulling in different directions. It's very much the way we are, for sure.
So I've got to ask before we get on to your books, does she scare you a little bit with what she writes?
She has scared me from day one. Erica she's a super fun sister to have when we were younger. I know I listened to her podcast and I was just giggling the whole time because, yeah, she was a terror. I mean, she had really two choices. It was either become a serial killer or become like the greatest horror writer. And yeah, she'll tell you it's for certain. She's a delightful sister, though. I mean, she got over that whole trying to kill us thing pretty quick. And she became like way more of a protective, like she said, much more of a, I can mess with her, but you can't. That's my sister sort of thing. And she was brilliant way back when. I mean, it was incredible, her talent, her writing talent. Even then, I would listen to her all night long, just clacking away on the keyboard. And I'm like, oh my Lord, I just want to sleep. But I've always been amazed at Erica's talent, whether it's movie making or writing. I've always wanted to work with her. I thought that would be so fun. Just knowing she's a go-getter, you know.
That's good. So tell me a little bit about your books.
Well, my books, my series so far is called the Illuminator Saga, and it was kind of born out of something that I take a lot of pride in, and that's turning, and we kind of discussed this in Erica's podcast, kind of turning trauma into something beautiful. My From Ashes series, the Illuminator Saga, namely, is about this woman who has suffered this horrible loss, and she's basically trying to find a new purpose, a new kind of guiding light. And I wrote this series as kind of my own way to cope. I had found out that, you know, I wasn't able to have kids, and then I kind of got hit with this wave after wave of chronic illness and chronic pain disorders and things like that. So I was having a really difficult time kind of adjusting to that. And I wanted to kind of convey that pain and having to start over and having to find a new purpose in a very entertaining and positive way. I really found this to be like kind of a brain-saving exercise almost, you know. My first attempt at a book ever, I'm not even going to reference the title, it was horrible. God bless Erica. She took so much time. I mean, she made that thing bleed, but it was still just absolutely atrocious. And she's like, all right, I want you to try again, but try something that like your heart says to try. And I tried fantasy, and this beautiful thing just kind of came out. She goes, go with it. Let's, you know, see what you can do. So I went on and wrote the entire series so far, and have about 3 pegboards right in front of me right now, characters and buildings and future ideas, and about thousands and thousands of reference pages, hundreds of books that I wanted to study writing to make sure what I was producing was actually something worth reading. And I really took a lot of pride in getting the topography down, on getting magic and its restraints and things like that really honed before I ever released a product, so that people weren't struggling with, metaphorically speaking, like Hermione's magic bag or the griffin at the very beginning, of the Lord of the Rings series, these huge plot holes that people are like, but why is that there? So after reading just dozens and dozens of books, Erica kind of stopped me, and she was basically saying, I want you to write more than I want you to continue like gobbling up all of this knowledge, because I don't want you to start getting so in your head that you don't write. And if I can give any advice to anybody ever, is perfectionism is the enemy of progress. Perfectionism truly is just the complete enemy of writers, because you can do what I did, and that's work on a book for 10 years. And you can flesh out every anthem, every flag, every, type of racism, or, these different kinds of stereotypes, or lore and gods and all of these things. You can absolutely spend your time doing that, but it doesn't get the book written, and it doesn't get your voice out there. And I promise you that even if you don't think that your voice is worth hearing, or that your book or short story or novella isn't up to snuff, keep trying, keep working, and then just believe in yourself a little bit. Everybody needs an Erica, and that's somebody who can kind of slap them in the face and say, enough is enough. You have to put this out into the world. It's time. And then they also need that cheerleader to be like, look, I know it's hard, and I know it's scary, and I know it's very nerve-wracking, and makes you feel very exposed. But you have to just keep going, keep getting better, keep growing. For instance, if you see the Harry Potter series, book 1 versus the final, her writing style changes substantially. And that's with any saga, any series. Writers grow. So that's why I love Erica's work, because her horror stories have gone from daunting and haunting to downright terrifying and nauseating, So I loved watching her journey as a writer, and I hope people can see, as we re-release Mantis, how far she's come as a writer. And Mantis is amazing. It's so much fun to read. It's a blast to read. But everything from that onward is really just incredible to watch her grow by leaps and bounds, and use terms and descriptors that are just kind of blow my mind, in a positive way. So absolutely. I'm sorry, I don't mean to ramble.
No, that's fine. Don't worry. Okay. So how different do you think the two worlds are, like horror and fantasy? Do you notice that there's much difference, or are they basically more the same?
As I've written horror, and I've been published as a horror writer as well, in a couple of anthologies, and I've written fantasy, and I can honestly say that like dark fantasy is just a happy blend of the two. It's a ton of fun, but there are no good fantasy stories without the suspense and terror and fear that comes with, creatures, monsters, beasties, things that really will come to make that unease and that tension arise. I could draw on so many examples right now of that, but I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory. Whereas in horror, you cannot have you can't have that anxiety and that tension and that fear without a lot of imagination and really kind of treading that boundary between, reality and what could be somebody's worst nightmare, which, obviously dreams are not always rooted in reality. Sometimes they're bizarre, but, back when Erica did a film called Mr. White, I loved the script. I hope she adapts it into a story someday. It's absolutely fantastic. There's a healthy dose of both fantasy and horror. And there's this lore and these, unique beings and unique ways of terrorizing people that I really thought was just a fantastic blend of both, where if you had just solely based something in reality, you'd get a little bit more of like a Jason Voorhees feel. And I kind of like the never knowing what to expect versus the around every corner is somebody running up a staircase and trying to run away from, a monster or a beast. So it's pretty interesting. I would say, as a fantasy writer, I truly do lean towards the darker fantasy aspect because I like the terror. It does stick with you. Where Erica's books are amazing. They just have such a way of haunting you and giving you those like very visceral reactions that you just can't get if you're just talking about frolicking through the woods, and everything's hunky-dory and everybody's happy. It's like, no, it's the terror and the adrenaline is what so many people love, and part of that is giving them a little dose of what you naturally fear and a little bit of a dose of something they never saw coming, that anticipatory fear that they can kind of dread, they can see coming, but then you slap them in the face with something new. I really love that. So.
Okay, so how do you come up with your fantasy worlds? How do you actually build it from scratch?
I'm so glad you asked that. Erica and I had a really tough childhood, and it was a lot of escapism, if that's the correct term, and I believe it is. But the escapism is just a really positive way of shaping your world into what you want it to be rather than what it is, right? So that escapism is so healthy when you're in a traumatic event that you cannot escape, which is a lot of what we dealt with. But I remember I was so terrified when I was a kid so much. I would crawl up into my sister's bed and I would sleep at the foot of the bed, where the dogs lay, as she would say, because she was not a very nice sister, but I'd be curled up at the little edge of the bed and we would start talking about our ideal, houses, or most of the time we were hungry. So we would do like ideal meals, and you'd see us like kind of bouncing off of each other, being like, oh, well, I would have this too. Or, I think you would do better if you had this, that's way better. And we would kind of just imagine these lavish, suppers and stuff like that, or breakfasts. And it was so much fun growing up, kind of having those exercises. And then I watched her I was that really annoying little sister that just wanted to do everything she was doing. I was so obnoxious. I totally get why she tried to murder me a couple of times, but I loved watching this one time we had this box sitting on the back of the hill of the house that we lived on. And she was like, what do you think is inside? And me and her friends are all like spitballing, what's in this box? What's happening? And they wanted to leave me there because, I'm the annoying one, and they wanted to go back to get a knife to open up this box. Well, by the time we all got back, because heaven forbid I stayed by myself, the box was gone. Somebody had noticed we were messing around in this box that they hadn't want us to get in. Sure enough, it was gone. Yeah. And ever since then, we were like, what do you think was in the box? We had so much of this like mysterious getting into trouble, always trying to figure out like the fantastic side of the world. And it was so much fun. And another example, we had, we were very broke growing up. And so when we would ride around with our bikes and stuff like that on the block, the neighbor kids and stuff like that would kind of notice we didn't look, like them or have the toys they did. And, so our like addendum, or our way of kind of mashing the worlds was to basically create our own games. And Erica was amazing at it. And, one time we summoned a dragon by trying to find all of the rainbow colored trash in our neighborhood. And you know what? It was a blast. It was so much fun. And that healthy dose of everything is mystical, everything is fantastic, everything is interesting and unique, kind of was born from necessity. So now when I was sitting there and I had been waiting to have surgery for a tumor removal, and it was like this really emotional time and I was really stressed out. And my sister's like, you know what? We should talk about what you should write next. And I had just started at that point. And that's kind of where the Illuminator Saga was born, as I was like, I would love to see, this and, a woman overcoming all odds and, her weird sidekick that doesn't leave her side. And, all of this, really creative and interesting way of handling this horribly stressful situation. And it ended up being like one of the most important and informative times of my life. And that's kind of where all of the fantasy ideas come from, is usually stress, overwhelm, or I'm having a really bad fibromyalgia flare and I just need a little bit of a break. So my brain kind of goes, okay, instead of spiraling down that rabbit hole, let's do something fun. I want to picture, this city or this town or this character. And it's been incredibly helpful, and incredibly healthy to have something that important and in depth to focus on, because in horror everything has to be a little bit realistic, right? We have to have that healthy fear of what we should be afraid of, mixed with what happened if. And fantasy is, kind of the escapism aspect of that is very much like, okay, this could happen if this happened. So it's almost like a reverse. And so when I kind of worked with Erica on this story and this plot, I watched her go through more and more horror stories and more plots. And I was like, yeah, we can totally flesh this out. And I just kept watching her, kick out project after project. And I'm like, you know what? I just have a new flag idea for, Desdemona or Bellaneau. And it was so fun to just show her, like, look at this thing that I made. And then next thing you know, we've got a series, we've got offshoot novellas, and now we're working together on a horror short, which is going to be such a blast. And we have tons and tons and tons of ideas for future projects, which I think will be so exciting. So
I think it will be exciting to see what you both come up with.
I genuinely think you'll like it. Really do.
So what's the most challenging aspect of writing for you?
I would say, obviously, everybody says, they don't have the time. When you're working full time, which most writers are, it tends to be a little bit daunting and frustrating trying to carve out the time, because in between, family obligations and, doctor's appointments, dental appointments, all this fun stuff, you're also trying to flesh out, in the horror realm, very much like, what is a new terror? What that, kind of freaks me out, but why does that freak me out? And, sussing that stuff out, having well thought out ideas too, and not just, I've got 5 minutes to write, let's just spit it out. That's really, really tricky. Like I said, I work with my husband and I work with my father in a laboratory. So we're kind of growing this business every year, and it's more and more time consuming and more stressful and more interesting. And it's such a blast to get to watch this business grow, and then to start Rusty Ogre and to see it grow as fast as it's growing, and to see it have as many titles already under its belt as it does is really fascinating to watch. But it also is evidence of when if he wanted to, he would, I'm sure everybody's heard that. If you want to, you do eventually find the time. And maybe you're like me, it takes 10 years to get a solid fleshed out book and a series going. It very well might, but that doesn't mean it's not worth doing. And it doesn't mean that it's time wasted in any capacity. It's all good time, even if it's 5 minutes of fleshing out what the terrain is in a particular area. That's something that you can show for your time versus, the time that you're vegetating, trying to shut off your brain, just, watching, if you're like me, YouTube or, TV or anything like that. That's not to say you should sacrifice it. I'm a firm believer that mental health reflects in your work. So if you are frazzled, your work will be kind of all over the place. But when you kind of get your house in order and you get your things together and you start making it a regimen where you're not rushing and trying to crush, as much into a tiny amount of time as you can, your work genuinely shows that, seeing the difference in chapters that I've written when I have 20-minute timers going versus when I don't have a timer going, I have the afternoon and I just have a goal. And those are night and day different, and Erica's writing it, I remember her trying to like crush out all these projects. And now she's taking the time to really flesh out all of these different senses. And it's amazing to see truly, truly immersive horror, which is terrifying. So, yeah, can't speak highly enough about that. So
how important is the research phase for you?
Oh, my God. So I am a perfectionist through and through. That is hugely detrimental to the writing process. But I am dead set on making sure everything is well researched. And I'm sure my sister, hearing this question, just rolled her eyes so hard. She may have just fallen out of her chair if she's listening to this. And I know my husband sees the same. But research, especially in a fantasy realm, is critical. I had no idea how in-depth topography was, for example. Then when I read book after essay after why does water flow this way, after, why are mountains built in a particular formation and what has to happen for these particular events to happen. And, it's truly awe-inspiring and genuinely overwhelming. But when you see things like why the Red Sea is red and you read all about that, you can put that into your book with the perfect circumstances and not make somebody who knows about that roll their eyes so hard. When I learned about, I hate to use this reference, but when I learned about Hermione's magic bag, I rolled my eyes and I got so frustrated as a fantasy author. I was just like, what is this? I want to understand why this is the way that it is. And it's hugely popular. And it's actually like a marketed thing, which I think is adorable. But as an author, it's a different way of looking at a convenient plot bridge, basically, of not having to do the hard work of laying each individual stepping stone to a solution and having this magic bag or magic, this or that or the other. So one thing that I highly suggest is doing your research, even if it's exhaustive, even if it's annoying, even if you're like, I think I know. Don't chance that because somebody out there is an expert and somebody out there is giving your book or your work a chance. And you don't want them to be like, oh my gosh, this was great, but now it's ruined it for me. And this is a major plot point that you've just put, a huge crimp into. So, I studied everything just that I could get my hands on. Like I said, hundreds of books, everything from mental health deficiencies and issues to, oh my gosh, like I said, terrain, martial arts. I learned just copious amounts of survival skills because of the kind of books I was reading. And then I actually wrote a horror short called Flesh Tag that's been published, and I'm really excited about that. My husband is a hunter, and I think that is just super cool. I'm totally supportive of whatever he wants to do in life. And the story is about a hunter that gets into some horrible trouble. And when I had him read it the first time, he was so frustrated because he's like, honey, I love you. And I think this is great. I really do. But this doesn't happen. And this doesn't happen. And that wouldn't happen. And I'm like, okay, all right. So show me the holes and tell me how to fix them. And thank God he was patient enough to be like, okay, this wouldn't happen because of this. A current project my sister and I are working on, which I'm so excited about, also involves nature and hunting and animals and things like that, but it's also like regional. So it's related to my area. And reading the first draft was incredibly infuriating because it was like, there are no bullets in a rifle. There are no, there's no, this on a this, and yes, female bucks, don't have antlers, all kinds of interesting stuff. So my husband, who is, like I said, incredibly patient, goes, I'm just going to help you guys. I want this to be the best it can be. And we're going to do that. So I'll take my time. And it was just so nice to see, like, the writing community as a whole is so genuinely kind and supportive. It is not the torrential, like, downpour of all of these, browbeaters and people that are just wanting you to fail. It is really a loving group of people that goes, you know what, I wouldn't have done it that way, but I love what you did, or I didn't like that, but I love the way you wrote it. And what an incredible group of people. I mean, I cannot speak highly enough. If that's a barrier to why you or anyone else are not putting your work out there, is you're terrified that, people are going to rip it apart. I cannot tell you how, like, inaccurate that is. Yes, there are trolls. There are people out there that genuinely want to just spread their anger and frustration. But that has nothing to do with you. Everyone wants you to just succeed. They want to be entertained. They want to be, thrilled if it's horror, and they want to be disturbed. Portrait of a Nuclear Family, cannot highly suggest that book enough. Oh my gosh, it is just warped. I love it. Still haunts me. All these weeks later, I read it and I was just like, holy crap, this is a whole new area of terror that I wish was more popular. It's to tap into that whole market, to tap into that whole surreal terror is just amazing to me. So I highly suggest anybody that is interested in it and just wants to give it a shot, don't be terrified by the community. We're all actually very friendly. We all bite, but that's only if you want us to. I think there's a fair amount of people that will, tear apart your work, but they are doing it to make it better, and they're doing it to show you the hole to make it mended. They're not doing it just to see you fail. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair. Very fair. So how do you approach character development?
That is really an interesting question, too. I began, and I highly suggest people don't do this if you are going to write, by modeling it after the people around me. Because when you care about people enough to where you want to create a character based off of them, you're going to forgive so much of their dark sides and their what am I trying to say? They're negative aspects that you will not make a realistic character. I I made the character Twitch from my book. I modeled him after my husband, but he's so the opposite of my husband now that it's polished and it's done, that it's laughable. I modeled my main character, Quistix, after Erica, because I loved that go get 'em, no nonsense, screw the norm. I'm here to be myself, and I'm not here for a long time, but I'm here for a good time kind of mentality. And so I modeled them after it at the beginning, but these characters were flat. They had no negative traits. They were just boring, and after I reread my own work and did a little bit of like soul searching on it, I was like, these guys are terrible and I need to work on them. So I worked on character developments, negative traits, really kind of honing in on why people have to have that downside to have the good side actually matter. Otherwise, you have like a paladin character, essentially, where everybody's kind of rolling their eyes. They're like, oh my God, yes, we get it. You're good. Okay, yes. All right, stop. So that character development on both sides of the spectrum is so critical. The negative is just as important, if not more so than the positive. If you think about characters that you love from books, a lot of the times, in horror, it is that triumphant mentality that, I will defy all odds. I will do whatever it takes to survive, that you admire. Whereas a lot of like the darker sides or the hilarity comes from the negative aspects in like fantasy or things like that. So if you want a character to be realistic and entertaining and enjoyable, they have to have that like critical good side, of course, but then they have to have a negative trait. Are they, struggling with alcoholism? Are they really struggling with their mental health? Are they dealing with some sort of sexual addiction? Like I have one character who he's a twitch. His name is Twitch, and he's a Wohl, which is like a fox hybrid creature, and he is just essentially a dog that humps your leg wherever you go. Just
and
that.
Is this the one you named after your husband?
Yes, this is the one I named after my husband, and I'm sure he'll be like, "Thanks for mentioning." And I named it after. God bless him. I modeled it after him, but this character is very much where he's, just kind of latched onto our main character, and he's just constantly shooting a shot, and you cannot help but love him, even though it is a negative character trait, and he's kind of a player, if you would. He is very much a lovable character, a character that actually a lot of comments have come back on, saying that, they're really hoping he stays through the series. They're really hoping that he, gets with the main character. They're really hoping, that he has like more of a role. So it's really great to see that a character with a very glaring negative trait is one of the most beloved. So character development it can't be biased. It can't be, unless you have like an unreliable narrator. But if you're working on trying to develop a character that you want to be interesting, I highly suggest getting yourself the character development dice, or creating your own like dungeon master sheet for rolling, so if you roll a 17, consider that character with this negative attribute, and it keeps things fresh, it keeps things interesting, but it also makes you kind of look at your character from a new perspective. So if my character is a noble person who, highly functions in society and is highly intelligent, but also struggles with kleptomania, it's going to make that character really interesting. And you're going to kind of always wonder when that negative trait is going to kind of mess up what they have planned. And that's what I'm here for. I mean, that's what I do, is I make sure things go wrong. That writers are the greatest sadists. So yeah, absolutely.
So are there any memorable reactions from readers that stand out to you?
Oh my goodness. Erica is always a really good feedback machine. She always cracks me up. She'll tell me without pulling any punches, I hate this character so much. If I met them, I would want to punch them in the face, or if I met this character, I would, shove them off of a bridge. Like, she has no punches pulled when it comes to the negative sides, but she always makes me laugh with her feedback. So you can deliver harsh feedback to somebody if you could also make them laugh about it and be like, yeah, could you imagine if this was realistic, this and this and this would happen? And usually it's pretty comical. But my husband, when I told him that Twitch was modeled after him, and then I told him what this character was about. He's like, I don't know how to take that. Thank you. I think it's sweet that you're including me in your novel as a very annoying character, I guess. I don't know. But my favorite one of all time was when I was workshopping this book. I did a dungeon master D&D group, and they agreed to let me use my world, my characters, and everything about it in this this whole series. And it was so fun. And this character that I had developed that would go along with them this entire this entire trek was a character from the book. And it was before she was kind of reformed and mellowed out a little bit. So she was just very hyper and goofy and just really chatty, and just they could only, pull her out of her little pouch to have her help every once in a while. And they hated her so much, not realizing that they were giving me feedback from my book. They all kind of let it rip, and they're like, can we please set this character free so that we don't ever have to hear from her again? And I'm like, dang, what is it about her that you guys hate so much? And I got the best feedback, to tone her down, change this, have this happen. And it's really, really helped. But it stung at first. I was like, this is my character. This is my little buddy, but next thing you know, people are ripping it apart, and you get a little offended. You're like, wow, I really thought I believed in this. I thought this was good. But it was so helpful and it's so beneficial. It really changed the whole course of this character. And I still get some comments from time to time being like, Frock is too much. She's extra. She's really extra. I'm like, yeah, but she's kind of modeled after me as a child, where I was just always bumbling around, always wanting to chat, always, just wanted to be a part of the group. And it was, when you know where these characters come from, you understand why an author tends to take it a little bit to heart when you don't like their characters. But at the same time, it was so helpful to the whole course of the story and the series itself that I would not trade that for the world. And they actually all got a thanks in the acknowledgments on my book. Shout out to Eric and Elena and Arvid, who all were very critical to kind of helping me form this character, as well as my husband, who also, again, pulled no punches, but they were fantastic to help me kind of make sure that this character is the best she can be before it's disseminated to everyone and they hate her or they love her. Yeah.
Okay, so are there any upcoming projects or releases that you're really excited about?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Writhe is by far the thing I'm the most excited about. I'm looking very forward to that one. My sister and I were working together on a short story or a short book, and it's going to be really, really impactful and very interesting. I am not nearly as good as she is on vivid, visceral, disgusting descriptors. And it's amazing to watch her work. It's amazing to read her stuff. And not to sound totally braggy, but I cannot hype it enough how awesome it is to read a writer's work before everybody else gets to, because I just get to like simmer in all the delicious like goodies, and I cannot wait to watch people like love what I love about her work. And it's like, I know, did you see that they are not there yet? Okay, slow down. So when I write with her, I get to see all of that in real time. And sometimes, in the way we used to write in like Word docs, so we could write at the same time. Well, it ended up kind of being distracting because she would log on when I was on, and we would start messing with each other's cursors and start like writing each other messages like, oh my God, I was already going to say that, or this is hilarious or whatever. And it got kind of distracting. So we had to stop. But it's such a fun project. It's going to be so much fun to see what everyone thinks of Erica's very horrendous imagination, mixed with a little bit of these interesting characters that have like a kind of a weird and interesting back and forth, and the interesting side characters that I enjoy creating, which, just add a little bit of flavor. So it's both of our child, basically. But Erica's definitely got the grip on the horror, and I've got all that flavor, coming at it. So we'll see how it comes out. But I also have another novella coming out as well, and I cannot wait for that one to come out. I think when people read the series, they're going to realize that when there is this weird like tether, you're like, wait, but what happened to that? That's where I have my fun, is in these novellas. Yeah. These characters that kind of leave you on a cliffhanger, you're like, but what happened? The novellas are very much where you're going to see their story, but it deserved its own time. It deserved its own journey, and it didn't necessarily need to kind of slow down the progress of our protagonist. So I wanted to kind of flesh out the entire world as well. And you can't always do that effectively as a writer. When you're trying to show from A to B, and you're trying to show the turmoil and chaos in between, you don't want to necessarily fill it up with a ton of side character fluff that it's not critical to the main character's end. So I really enjoy these novellas because I get to show what I had in mind for all of these characters and their whole lives and their journey and their motivations and their relationships and stuff. So it's fleshing out the world as well in detail and in journey, where you won't necessarily get to go with our protagonist. Yeah. So it's just even more immersive. It shows, so much more than I can show when we're trying to have a jam-packed, getting going and the train is a glugging kind of thing with our main story. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that gets received, and if people enjoy those side stories and the fleshing out of the world more, or if they just want to focus on the protagonist and kind of her journey. So we'll see what people think of that.
That's brilliant. And obviously you are the co-founder as well, alongside Erica, with Rusty Ogre.
Yes.
Are you excited about anything that's coming out from there as well?
Yes, absolutely. So we started out like Rusty Ogre together, and I graduated with a business degree, a bachelor's in business management. So when I went to the school that I went to, which was, Jacksonville University, they have an incredible accreditation process. And they really focus on trying to make sure that you have a really well-rounded education in whatever you choose, which is one of the many reasons I chose them. So when I chose the business, program, I knew that I was going to be getting way more than just any other, accredited journey. It was going to be more intense and rigorous. So it was, and it has benefited us greatly. So where Erica has owned and operated Kika Productions for many years, I have been running and quadrupling the profitability of the current business that I'm in, which is awesome. And it's a huge pat on the back there. But I really look forward to Rusty Ogre getting out there, me working whatever magic I can, and seeing Erica use her heart and her soul like she has been to really make this thing glow and to show people this beautiful realm and this gigantic list of beautiful projects we have planned. Erica has, her cozy mystery coming up, and lots of horror, mostly horror. I hope she has this incredible talent for horror. And the community is incredibly amazing and loyal and just weirdly, when we grew up with horror as the foundation in our family, it was just these really unique and interesting just whole different worlds. Basically, you go to Halloween Horror Nights, or you go behind the scenes in a haunted house or something, and you really see everyone in a horror community, not just in the writing community, but as a whole. They're about the nicest people on the planet, and they're so like loving and caring and just incredibly supportive of one another. And getting to watch her whole horror journey and see it come to this under Rusty Ogre's realm is really fascinating to watch, because you see all of these little drawbacks. And I know from this side of things where she's drawing inspiration and where her brain is making the connections, and it's beautiful. Like Derailed, oh my goodness, that one was amazing. That was the focal point of that one. Obviously, was a traumatic incident she herself, struggled with, but then to see the mental illness aspect of our family growing up and see that kind of work into this absolutely horrendous story is fascinating. It's really incredible to see. So Rusty Ogre is going to benefit from having the global and wide open mindset of two people who have just so much passion to entertain, but such big hearts that we don't want to do it just because we can. We want to do it for the love of people. And her love of the horror community is just so amazing. And I still have friends from when I would be in the scenes of her, horror movies, just like from decades ago. They're just amazing people. So just cannot speak highly enough of them. But as Rusty Ogre grows, I love that we are so engrossed and have a major passionate stake in the horror realm. And I really want to see that continue going forward and us delve even deeper into that.
It's brilliant. And I'm sure it will. You're both very passionate, as you say. So
thank you.
You will go far, I do think. I think you'll do really well.
I think so too. We are very hardworking ladies.
You couldn't really tell that by the way either of you.
Yeah, right. Oh my gosh. And Erica is go, go, go. I mean, she will 4 o'clock in the morning. She'll be like, what do you think about this? Erica, go to sleep. Crazy, crazy. It's so fun though. I wouldn't be on this journey with anybody else. And I'm honored to have the group that she has created from her history in movie making and things like that. Not to mention, she just has this uncanny ability to draw people to her. So you'll see writers and people engaging in her posts on social media, and it's just like, this is amazing. Like, truly, she is a spirit that people are drawn to for very good reason. And I know she speaks very highly of me as well, and I'm honored. But the honor is genuinely all mine to get to work with her. So I highly suggest anybody that's interested in touching on anything Rusty Ogre, go read her work. She is amazing.
And how much did she pay you to say all that?
Right? I know. She should. I'm just thinking about it, that whole payroll thing's got to get, underway here. No, I wish I could say that I was not always my sister's biggest fan, but I've always been my sister's biggest fan since I was teeny tiny with her very first movie, The Stalker, which I'm sure she will absolutely hate me referencing. But I was in there and I was a dead body that couldn't stop smiling. So ever since then, just elated to be a part of it. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I mean, it's nice to hear. It's nice that you've both got such a good relationship with each other.
Absolutely. And like she said, there was a while there we didn't talk. It was namely because I didn't want to hear the harsh truth of the dumb choices that I had made. But Erica is always going to tell you straight up how it is. And her characters really show that. Quistix, the character that I've modeled after her, is very much the same way. So she inspires people through her honesty, and I am a cheerleader through and through. I want everyone to take the chance to make their voices heard, to really just believe in themselves. And if you can't find a cheerleader, I'll be your cheerleader all day long. I will make sure that you know that your voice is worth hearing. And I wish everybody had sisters like us, the ones that'll give you the tough love, and then the one that'll make sure you get picked up when the world kicks you down. But not everybody can have that. So we're just going to have to be the world's sisters, and we're just going to have to be everybody's support system. And that's what we intend to be. It's not just a company that's out to make a quick buck. We're not in this to try to make everybody, buy our stuff. It's very much a company that we want to take the time to believe in people who have a hard time believing in themselves. Like Jim Kane, our newest addition, his book, it's one-off, and he's an amazing writer. I'm so proud of him. And the way that he has written and kind of developed things, sure, it can use a polish like all of our work can, but he's incredible. He's really incredible. And I'm so glad that we have started with him on this opportunity to take something that somebody may not have a lot of faith in, but had a lot of passion in when they wrote it or when they created it, and really show them, okay, yeah, this needs to be punched up. We're going to show you all the holes in the sweater, but we're going to make you stitch it up, and we're going to make you better for it. And we're all about mending and supporting, and especially females in horror. My sister's very adamant about that. And I am very adamant about perfectionists getting out of their own way, because it is good enough. It is worth putting out, and it is something that very well could change somebody's life. So don't discount yourself before the world discounts you.
It's lovely advice. Thank you.
Absolutely.
And thank you very much, Heather, for appearing on the show. It's been lovely having you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been wonderful getting to know you. So thank you for your time.
You're very welcome. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I would like to say thank you all so much for listening. Thank you, Crystal, for your time and having me on board and taking the time to learn about Rusty Ogre. It's two people who are just incredibly passionate about entertaining you and making sure that the products that you get aren't just mush, they are quality and something that can actually engage you on more than one front. But I thank you, everybody who's just shown any interest. It's been amazing so far, and I cannot wait to see where the world takes us.
You're very welcome. I hope everything goes well for you both. I really do.
Thank you.
You both seem very lovely.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I'm very honored to hear that. Thank you.
You're very welcome.